ప్రేక్షకులందరికీ నమస్కారం. జయ శ్రీరామ. ఈరోజు మనం వేదవీర ఆర్య గారితో ఒక ప్రత్యేకమైన లైవ్ అయితే నిర్వహించబోతున్నాము. నా ఆహ్వానాన్ని మన్నించి నా ప్యానల్కి వచ్చిన వేదవీర్ గారికి మనస్ఫూర్తిగా కృతజ్ఞతలు తెలుసుకుంటున్నానండి. అలాగే వేదవీర్ ఆర్య గారి గురించి తెలియని వాళ్ళకి ఒక చిన్న ఇంట్రడక్షన్. ఆయన ఒక సీనియర్ ఆఫీసర్ మినిస్ట్రీ ఆఫ్ డిఫెన్స్లో, అలాగే క్రోనాలజీ, హిస్టరీ, ఆర్క్యూ ఆస్ట్రానమీ, సాంస్క్రిట్ స్టడీస్ లాంటి వాటిలో ఆ సబ్జెక్ట్స్లో చాలా విశేషమైన నైపుణ్యం ఉంది ఆయనకి. ఋగ్వేద కాలం నుంచి మహాభారతం వరకు, అలాగే మహాభారత కాలం నుంచి మిడీవియల్ ఎరా వరకు పూర్తిగా ఒక క్యాలెండర్ క్రొనాలజీని అయితే ఆయన ఎస్టాబ్లిష్ చేశారు. అది కూడా ఖగోళ ఆధారంగా, అలాగే శాసనాలను బట్టి పూర్తిగా. ఇంకా ఆయన చాలా పుస్తకాలు అయితే రాశారండి. అందులో ఇంపార్టెంట్గా చెప్పుకోవాలనుకుంటే ది క్రోనాలజీ ఆఫ్ ఇండియా ఫ్రమ్ మను టు మహాభారత, ది క్రోనాలజీ ఆఫ్ ఇండియా ఫ్రమ్ మహాభారత టు మిడీవియల్ ఎరా, క్రోనాలజీ అండ్ ఆరియన్స్ ఆఫ్ ఇండో-యూరోపియన్ సివిలైజేషన్స్, ఇలాంటి పుస్తకాలని రాశారండి. ఈ పుస్తకాలకు సంబంధించి అమెజాన్లో గూగుల్ మీట్ లింక్ అయితే, అమెజాన్ లింక్ అయితే నేను ప్రొవైడ్ చేశాను. వీడియో డిస్క్రిప్షన్లో ఉంది. ఎవరైనా చూడాలనుకుంటే ఖచ్చితంగా వెళ్ళి చూడండి. ఇంకా వెయిట్ చేయొద్దు. ఆర్యా సార్, గుడ్ ఈవినింగ్.
గుడ్ ఈవినింగ్. మీ అందరికీ నా నమస్కారములు. What I'll do, I'll speak in English. First, I'll give my presentation on how we need to work out the antiquity and origins of entire Eurasia. Why? Because the history of India is integrally a part of entire Eurasian civilizations. That's why we need to understand how humanity originally started in India. From out of Africa migrations, the people settled in India first. Some researches are there from some Australian university. In his dissertation, he has even established that even 25,000 BC in South India, especially after Gujarat, experienced a weather of almost 20 to 24 degree weather. So that's why India was very habitable even before Loth glacial maximum. And one Western researcher, his name is Atkinson, what he says that 40,000 to 18,000 or 20,000 BC, India was the most populous country in entire Eurasia. So naturally, the people first settled and India became most populous country. Then when civilization began, or pre-civilization, there were out of India migrations. So before, we need to understand how the humanity began. It means the India was the cradle of civilization in a way. But the problem is we lost the chronology, so we could not establish even today. Unfortunately, our textbooks in university or colleges, they teach us we have a prehistory beyond Buddha. It means beyond 500 BC, we don't know what kind of a chronological history we have. That is the tragedy with the most ancient civilization, what we belong to. I'll just share my presentation, then we will discuss about it. Recently, I have published this book. Hope my presentation is visible to you.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
So this is the chronology and origins of Indo-European civilization. Why I wanted to integrate the origins and antiquity of entire Eurasia, because it is once genetically, if entire Eurasia is interlinked, or almost there was a one common origin. Like in linguistics, we always try to find out where is the original homeland of Indo-Europeans. Recent genetic researches all are proving that somewhere recent certain research they're coming up to the South Caucasus. Now they are going to reject that steppe origin theory. Now they are coming back to the South Caucasus. But South Caucasus, how South Caucasus was populated, that also extremely important. They did not just drop there to begin a civilization. Why the chronology subject is actually, it's a multidisciplinary subject. In Sushruta Samhita, it is Ekam Shastram Adhiyano Navidyat Shastra Nishtaya. The biggest problem is last 200, 300 years, the chronological research was actually influenced by Bible mindset. James Ussher, then Lightfoot, then Newton. All these three, they believed in biblical timelines. So 4000 BC is the creation, 3000 BC is the flood somewhere. So every civilization cannot have more than 3000 BC history. So when other civilizations started claiming greater antiquity, they started archaeology. Okay, let us have a archaeology and then find out whether what is the antiquity of the civilization. Till the carbon dating has been invented somewhere 1950s, not a single archaeologist in the entire world ever dated any finding beyond 2000 BC. Why? It's a Bible mindset. It's not a science. What happened? The Bible mindset has been proven with the various scientific evidences to say that humans were not civilized beyond 3000 BC. We were only hunter-gatherers prior to that. This is the assumption presented. But the ancient civilizations claim greater antiquity. Not only India, even Greeks, Persians, Egyptians, Sumerians, they claim greater antiquity. They're the most ancient civilizations. But why this has been rejected? It's only the mindset last 300 years. Then when scientific methods evolved, they started getting greater dates more than 3000 BC. But they never accepted that any civilization is possible beyond 3000 BC, even today, whatever the research papers have been published. So, while coming out a clear research on the chronology, we need to have a multidisciplinary approach. What we need to do first, we need to work out the historical chronology of each ancient civilization based on their traditional literary epigraphic sources first, then try to integrate with the archaeogenetics, because last 20-25 years this is the new science has been emerged through which we can map the human migrations, because the human migrations then you can link with the languages. So this way the linguistics becomes an evidence. But without, if there is a error in the chronology, then the conclusions and assumptions behind the archaeogenetics and linguistics may be different. That's why it is extremely important to understand the traditional chronology first, then try to understand archaeogenetics and linguistics. Then you may be more closer to the truth while reconstructing the past. Of course, archaeology is a material evidence, but it is we must refrain from accepting that absence of evidence is the evidence of absence. So whatever you have found, you try to explain whatever the chronology has been established, but don't try to reject all evidences because you haven't found something in excavations. Then the another science which is evolving more than 400 years, even from John Playfair's, who studied Indian astrological tables, and he said that Indians use an epoch of 4300 BC. Thereafter, Balagangadhar Tilak wrote Orion. Then even he started talking about Punarvasu, vernal equinox in Orion, and beyond that Punarvasu. Based on that, this Balagangadhar Tilak try to date 6000 to 4000 BC is the date of Rigveda or something. But till date, archaeoastronomy is only became an opportunistic subject, because whenever they need, they refer it to otherwise. Otherwise, the archaeoastronomy is a scientific study and it must be integral to the chronological studies. But that till date, we could not get that kind of a recognition, because the problem is, especially in the text and others, all based on certain interpretation. So we need to establish a regulatory mechanism and a methodology so that archaeoastronomy it must be, it should become as a subject and a scientific field for the chronological studies. And of course, other scientific field studies like sea level rise and end of Ice Age, Holocene, and younger dryas, and various other geological evidences, and numerous other fields of the science. So when we integrate all these things and then start to reconcile the chronological, then that may be more precise methodology for chronological research. Today we will discuss about the chronology of course, Bharatvarsh, Greek, Persians, Sumerians, Egyptians, Assyrian, and Shaka Aratta. So, if we start our Indian chronology, what I have done, I have reconstructed the Indian calendar from Vedic era to till Mahabharata era. Why? Because Indians were very proficient and they have developed a lunisolar calendar, an advanced lunisolar calendar during the Rigvedic period itself. They started using one Yuga calendar. A Yuga had only 5 years, not lakhs of years, which became later. We have enlarged the Yugas for accurate integer values. That was not the historical timelines. But during the Rigvedic period and the post-Vedic period, a Yuga calendar was in vogue. So I tried to reconstruct, I have reconstructed this Yuga calendar starting from 13,322 BCE. I will explain how this comes. For reconstructing the Indian Yuga calendar, we have to first find out what are the texts have been dated text in before Mahabharata era. Let us find out the Surya Siddhanta. Surya Siddhanta, Mayasura says that I am writing this text at the end of the Krita Yuga, 28th Krita Yuga in the 7th Manvantara. It means after Mayasura, Treta Yuga began. So we need to find out what is the timeline for the Mayasura as well as Bharata, Bharatanatya Shastra. Bharata Muni is saying that he is writing this Bharatanatya Shastra in Treta Yuga of Vaivasvata Manvantara. So what I have done, I have taken this Surya Siddhanta because it's a very scientific astronomical text. So what he has recorded, he observed very rare conjunction during his lifetime, and using that conjunction as an epoch, then he wrote this Surya Siddhanta. That's why Surya Siddhanta became very accurate, even all other Siddhantas. So that Surya Siddhanta, what I'll just show you one small clip. Who probably you may. So this is the very strongest astronomical evidence. Hope you have heard this small clip.
Sir, there is no voice. I mean, audio is not coming.
Okay, okay,
We
okay.
only saw the visual.
Okay. So this what I want. I don't know what happened in this Google Meet. Sometimes these softwares don't support playing videos on presentations. So in Surya Siddhanta, there is a shloka. I'll just share you the slide. अस्मिन् कृतयुगस्यान्ते सर्वे मध्यगता ग्रहाः विनातुपातमन्दोच्चान् वेषादौ तुल्यतामिताः. The Mayasura, what he is saying, when sun was in the first degree of Aries, all planets came together. So there was a conjunction of all planets, and when sun was in the first degree of Aries, it means naturally it has to be Chaitra Shukla Pratipada because moon is also there. Moon and sun conjuncted, so it's after Amavasya. So what Mayasura is saying, on Chaitra Shukla Pratipada, there was a great conjunction. Why? Because Mayasura was the first person who introduced planetary motions also integral part of Indian calendar. Prior to that pre-Siddhantic calendar, we used to follow sun motion and lunar motion, and we wanted to reconcile the lunisolar calendar. He introduced that no, we need to follow the Jupiter cycle also. Then you have to have a conjunction. So that's why to start any Siddhanta, so Mayasura observed this conjunction. Now, let us find out. It takes, I think, 300 to 400 years, roughly 400 years to have any conjunction. In that also, I simulated more than last 20,000 years because I haven't gone beyond that because there is no point of searching certain astronomical facts in the Ice Age. So I have taken 20,000 or 60,000 years and I started simulating to when this kind of a conjunction occurred when sun was in first degree of Aries. I found only one date, that is 22nd February 6778 BC. So, almost 8,800 years before from today. So then it becomes very strong evidence because there was no conjunction occurred whenever sun was in first degrees in last 16,000 years. So it's not a cyclical. So it may occur once in a few thousand years or it may occur once in a lakhs of years also. So that's why this becomes the strongest evidence to fix the end of the last year of the Krita Yuga, 28th Krita Yuga. So based on that, we can establish that 6777 BCE was the beginning of the Treta Yuga. So this is how, what I, based on that, I have established two major, one. First is the Vedic era. You have to start autumnal equinox in Ashwini, that goes back to 13,300 in BC. Then this conjunction of planets to be taken as a beginning of the Siddhanta Jyotisha and end of the 28th Krita Yuga. Then we can easily reconcile or reconstruct all astronomical evidence because Ashwini Suktas of Rig Veda, they talk about, because if you see all Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajurveda, even Samaveda, Atharva Veda, they all talking about Jivema Sharada Shatam, Pashyema Sharada Shatam, Shatam Jivati Sharada. So numerous, every time they are referring to Sharad as in synonymous to a year. So it means Sharad means autumn. Autumnal equinox was the basis, not vernal equinox. So if we Ashwini Suktas, the Rigveda refers to an equinox. So that's why that autumnal equinox used to occur in Ashwini somewhere 13,500 BC roughly. And thereafter, after 2000 years, the Orion, because it is well known that Mrigashira was called as the Agrayana, and first time 28 list of nakshatras has been established starting from Mrigashira. Why? Because during the Rigvedic period itself, Vedic rishis developed the basic trigonometry. Not a single civilization other than India ever developed a nakshatra system because they were not using trigonometry in the astronomy. It is only Indian Vedic rishis. They applied trigonometry, basic trigonometry during the Rigvedic period itself and divided the entire sky into 28 nakshatras. So that nakshatra list it began from the Mrigashira. That's why the famous legend, like Prajapati had 27 daughters and he married off his all 27 daughters to Chandra, moon. So Prajapati became 28 nakshatra. Prajapati is Mrigashira. So this Mrigashiradi nakshatras, one more thing, while doing this basic trigonometry, they wanted to fix the 0 degree. Equinox, it is little difficult for them to find out how to fix the 0 degree. So they took a solstice, winter solstice as a 0 degree. So winter solstice at Mrigashira is that occurred around 11,200 BC. Thereafter, after 1,000 years, due to precession, now one nakshatra precession that led to winter solstice in Rohini around 10,200 BC. Thereafter, another 1,000 years, we have a winter solstice used to occur at Kritika. This is the reason Atharva Veda's Nakshatra Sukta is giving the list of nakshatras starting from Kritika again. So this is how during the Rigvedic period, even all Brahmana, the Aranyakas, they talk about Sahasra Samvatsara, a cycle of 1,000 years. So all these things indicate that during the Rigvedic period, we followed 5-year Yuga, 20-year Chatur Yuga, and 1,000-year Mahayuga. So this is how from 13,322 BC till the 7322 BC, when winter solstice shifted to Ashwini, 6,000 years have been elapsed. Now the 7th Manvantara, that Vaivasvata Manvantara began somewhere 7322 BCE, and again 20-year cycles have. But when Surya Siddhanta, Mayasura introduced Surya Siddhanta in 6778 BCE, now he convinced all Indian astronomers that you have to incorporate Jovian cycle also. Jupiter cycle also equally important. So Jupiter cycle is 12 years. So 5-year, 10-year, 20 years are not good enough to incorporate Jovian cycles. We need in multiples of 12. So we enlarged the Yuga cycle after 6777 BCE. We made a Yuga 1200 years. Why? Because it's not exactly 365 days in a year. There are certain hours, maybe 6 hours, some minutes and seconds extra. How we are going to incorporate some hours, minutes and seconds in a calendar? It is not possible. So we needed an integer value. For integer value, if you are dealing with the fractions, you make the base number bigger so that your accuracy levels are more higher if you take the bigger number. This is how first time after Surya Siddhanta, we enlarged the Yuga 1200 years. So that's why Treta Yuga had 1200 years. Thereafter, we have enlarged the 1200 years also not good enough for accuracy. So we enlarged to 12,000 years. And we assumed that there is a differential duration. That's why Dwapara Yuga had only 2,400 years till Mahabharata era, 3177 BC. Just before the beginning of Mahabharata era, we found that 12,000 is also not good enough for accuracy. We multiplied 12,000 with 360 and made 43,20,000 years. Then our accuracy became very, very, I think maybe few seconds is the error in that's all for reconciling the lunisolar and the Jovian cycles. So this is how our entire, I hope this slide is visible. The entire Yuga calendar, if you see, first Manvantara had 1,000 years, 13,322 BC. During this period, we followed Chaitra Yuga cycle. The first Yuga used to start Chaitra. But after third Manvantara, we started following Falguna, the Yuga calendar, because after 2000 year, one lunar month, due to precession, one lunar month also preceded. Thereafter, almost 9300 BCE, we started using Magha Shukla, the calendar, which is very prominently written by Vedanga Jyotisha. So the Vedanga Jyotisha calendar, that Magha Shuktadi calendar, but after the 7300 BCE, we switched over from Sayana to Nirayana calendar. That's why we till now we follow Ashwini only. We never revise the nakshatra lists. So this is how our Yuga calendar evolved. After 7322 BC, 1 to 27 Chaturyugas, only 540 years. Thereafter, Krita Yuga also had 5 years only, in which Mayasura wrote Surya Siddhanta. Thereafter, since Yuga length has been enlarged to 1200 years, so Treta Yuga had 1200 years. That's why the last century of Treta Yuga was 5677 to 5577 BCE. This 100 years was actually Ramayana era, and during that time Sri Lanka just started becoming an island. Otherwise, if you go beyond 6000 BCE, Sri Lanka was not even an island. You can easily walk into from Tamil Nadu. It was getting submerged during high tide. So the Vanarasena, they just did the land filling by 1 meter, so that you can easily walk into the Sri Lankan territory. So this is how the Ramayana era is 5677 to 5577. Thereafter, Dwapar Yuga had 2400 years, and Mahabharata era in 32nd century BC. This is the Yuga calendar we used to follow. But after Mahabharata era, we started when the Indian astronomer, when they started reconciling the proper lunar and Julian and the solar cycles, then they found that Magha Shukladi calendar and whatever the intercalation we wrote, that is not good enough. Then slowly we switched over to vernal equinox based Vaishakhadi calendar around 2000 BCE. That Vaishakhadi calendar was invoked till 1st century BC. Then we started following Chaitra Shukladi calendar. But this we need to understand the history of how calendars used in India. There was little different traditions in South India as well as in the North India. But yes, Vedic Yuga calendar was followed in both sides, South India also, North India also. So then another calendar I have reconstructed is Saptarshi calendar, because till Mayasura Surya Siddhanta, it was very easy to count yugas, because in any human life, 5-year cycles, 20-year cycles can be counted. There was not any problem at all. But after 6778 BCE, after Surya Siddhanta, since we have enlarged the Yuga cycle up to 1200 years, it was extremely difficult to remember each cycle up to 1200 years, one cycle. So what we have done, we have said, let us make smaller cycles, 100 year cycle. So every 100-year cycle named after a nakshatra. This is how Saptarshi cycle came into existence. Since we have fixed the nakshatra list from Ashwini, so if you start from Ashwini, then if you see, first cycle ended somewhere 4077 BCE. Second cycle started, and 3177 to 3077 is the Magha nakshatra. This is the reason all Puranas, even Varahamihira, Rajatarangini, and numerous other texts talk about that when Yudhishthira was ruling in Hastinapura, the Saptarshis were in Magha nakshatra. So this is how Saptarshi cycle we need to reconstruct. So finally, this is how we have to work out the Indian civilizational chronology. Comes around 14,000 BC till how. So India has a very a greater antiquity, and it has a history of more than 16,000 years of civilizational history. Now let us reconcile something kind of, I'll call it as a secular evidence, like even Tamil history. Irayanar Agapporal is a text written by Shiva himself. That Irayanar Agapporal has been mentioned even Tolkappiyam, the second oldest text, Tolkappiyam also. And Nakkirar, who wrote a commentary on Irayanar Agapporal, he talks about 3 Sangam periods and over the 10,000 years. So he is dating Rishi Agastya 11,226 BC. So that exactly matches when you, because Agastya was contemporary of Shiva and Daksha Prajapati, and Daksha Prajapati is only Mrigashira. So Mrigashira, the list of nakshatras was introduced around 11,300 BCE, and Rishi Agastya's time also 11,000. Same Rishi Agastya, who was writing Vedic suktas in Vedic Sanskrit, as well as he was composing some poems, and even he wrote a grammar for Tamil language also. That's why Vedic Sanskrit and Tamil language both are actually sister, born to same mother. So then I'll just flip this one. This I just wanted to give another evidence of one Ashwa Sukta. But generally, this is the major argument from the leftist and the Western scholars. Rig Veda talks about Ashwa. These are all Central Asian horses. They came only after 4000 BC in India, so you can't date it. But the Ashwa mentioned in Rig Veda, they talk about Chatustrimshad Vajino Deva Bandhor Vakri Rashvasya Swadetis Sameti. This is the mantra of Rig Veda. Rig Veda is talking about Ashwa's 34 ribs, not 36 ribs. The Central Asian horse is Equus caballus. That Equus caballus has 36 ribs, whereas the Equus sivalensis, the Shivalik horse, was found in India, and it became extinct by 8000 BC. That Shivalik horse remains have been found even in South India, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, even North India. And then finally they found that this specific Equus, means the horse, Shivalik horse, became extinct just after the Holocene, around 8000 BC or 9000 BC. And one more interesting part is Rig Veda is talking about Shringa of Shivalik horse, this Ashwa. So probably that unicorn, because all Greek historians talk about a unicorn, and that unicorn is found only in India, and maybe a Shivalik horse may be a unicorn. But till date, we haven't found any evidence of, because we found the head of the, this is the one particular remains of a Shivalik horse. But because especially the horn is made of material, especially what is in human ears and nails, so that very fast, it degrades very fast. Because even till now, we haven't found any horn of rhinoceros also in a greater antiquity. So, but whatever it is, the Equus sivalensis, the Shivalik horse, was an Ashwa during the Rig Vedic period, not the Central Asian horse, so that we can correctly understand the chronology. Now, let us quickly understand the Greek civilization. The Greeks, actually, what they are talking about, the Plato, he is saying that 9000 years before his lifetime, Atlantis city was submerged. All historians, especially post-Christ historians, they rejected. Why? Because it contradicts with the Bible. Bible said creation only 4000 BC. How can you talk about 10,000 BC or 9,000 years before the Plato's lifetime? It's a mythology. That's all. It's only Bible mindset. They rejected this. Otherwise, Greeks had their own history. They have nothing to do with the Adam and Eve. It's only what if anybody is linked to it, only some Jews are related to the Middle East. Europeans, especially Greeks, have nothing to do with the Adam and Eve, so they need not to draw their history from Adam and Eve. But since after conversion, the Christians insisted that no, you can't have a history beyond the Adam and Eve, so that's why they rejected it as a mythology. Same thing, same Greek historian, when they came to India, they're talking about before 6421 years before the lifetime of the Alexander, there was a king Dionysus, whom they also called Bacchus. So he was, from there onwards, Indians count 153 kings, it has been mentioned. So the Greek historians are talking about that India had a history of 6500 years even before Alexander. But they're talking about one Dionysus who actually invaded Afghanistan, and they ruled for 300 years in Afghanistan. This has been mentioned because Alexander was not the first person to invade India as per the Greek history. The earliest one is Dionysus, thereafter Hercules. After Hercules, Alexander was the third, who could cross beyond the Indus. Others remained outside of, means western side of the Indus only. Then there is a one Greek astrological table, Thema Mundi. It is actually showing vernal equinox at Cancer that leads to around 6500 BC. So even the Greeks talk about Zoroaster, who compiled Avesta. They roughly date Zoroaster around 7000 BC. Then we have some archaeological site of this Gobekli Tepe. Probably you all aware of these have been found in Anatolia, Turkey presently. So these are all sites are showing that the greater antiquity of civilizations. Then Persians especially, the Avesta is talking about Yama and Ahura. Yama was the son of Vivaswan. It is clearly mentioned that as Vivaswan. So Vaivasvata Manu was ruling in India, and the Vivaswan's second son, Yama, a brother of Vaivasvata Manu, was actually ruling over the Asuras in the northwestern side. The Ahura Mazda was the contemporary of Yama. So since we have dated 11,200 BC roughly for the Vaivasvata Manu, similarly Ahura Mazda also. And Indian texts talk about Asura Veda. Many, even Gopatha Brahmana and another Brahmana, they are referring to some Asura Veda. Asura also wrote a Veda in same Sanskrit, Rigvedic Sanskrit only. Maybe some grammar may be a little bit different. So that Asura Veda only later compiled as Avesta. That's why the so much linguistic similarities between the Vedic Sanskrit as well as the Avestan Sanskrit. Then the entire Avesta, there is a very, in the first chapter itself, they are talking about younger Drayas, a mini ice age. What happened during the Jamshed period? There was a conflict between one Naga, Takshaka Naga, whom they called it Zahak. So these Nagas were ruling over Kashmir and northwestern India, even up to Takshashila. So they were in a conflict. Then Zahak defeated Jamshed, and then they extended their kingdom up to Caspian Sea. That's why Caspian Shabd also came from Kashyapa. The Caspian word is derived from Kashyapa. Nagas were the descendants of Rishi Kashyapa. That's why they named the Caspian, the sea, in the name of Rishi Kashyapa. And this Avesta is talking about younger Drayas. They mention that these Nagas and Devas, they created a very harsh winter for us. It is almost 10 months is the winter, even 2 months. Though we are experiencing summer, but still it is also a cold. So explicit reference to younger Drayas is given in Avesta, which gives a timeline 10,700 to almost 9,700 BCE. Modern science has established the timeline of the younger Drayas is 10,700 BC to 9,700 BC. Someone who not lived or whose forefathers not lived during that time, they may not have that experience saying that how they knew that harsh winter of 10 months and 2 months summer only existed. This is only an experience of younger Drayas that has been recorded in Avesta. That's why Avesta is also equally oldest text, as old as Rigveda also. Zarathustra, he was the second one who recompiled Asura Veda as a Avesta, and he transformed into a monotheistic cult. So there is the history is there, and if you read the Firdausi's Shahnama, the modern historians reject everything, whatever the history given in Shahnama is totally mythology, because they talk about greater antiquity. They also start somewhere 14,000 BC onwards, and they give the history till 7,000 BCE. Thereafter, probably Persians lost their kingdom to Scythians. So this is how we can establish the Persian history. And Sumerian civilization, there is a Berosus who wrote a Babyloniaca, and one great one story about Vala, Asura king Vala, Panis and Sarama Devashuni in Rigveda. So that Sarama Devashuni crossed Rasa river and searched the Panis. Panis were the Gorakshakas of Indra. Later, they have stolen the entire I think numerous cows and other, and they taken probably somewhere these Panis have gone to South Caucasus, that especially modern Armenian and Azerbaijan region. So that King Vala, he was the king of Panis. So the Sarama Devashuni has gone there. That this same Vala was later the Asuras, they had a conflict between. Asuras and Panis have fought between each other. Then one King Haik who killed this King Vala. So there is a historical legend even in Armenia as well as. So this Vala only Baal or Baalbek and Belus mentioned in the Syrian and even Phoenician history. And this Baal, he was the founder of the city of Babylon, because the war took place between this Asura king Vala or Panis and the other Asuras somewhere closer to Mount Ararat. So then there is we have a Sumerian king list. They are giving the chronology starting from 10,000 BC onwards. So if you see this image I wanted to show you, if you go back to the 9,000 or 10,000 BCE, Persian Gulf was not even a gulf at all, because sea levels were very low, 120 meters below than present, whatever the sea level. So that time Persian Gulf was a very good delta region of Euphrates and Tigris, that Euphrates and Tigris rivers. So here, people, because during the younger Drayas, the people living in the Sumerian region, especially in India, especially that Ketu mountain or Nanga Parvat and the Hindu Kush mountains, these were called Meru, Sumeru. The people living in the Sumeru region were called Sumerians. These people, Sumer people, have migrated during the younger Drayas because there was hardly any rain in that side. So they moved to this Persian Gulf. They started doing the agriculture. But when after the younger Drayas, sea level suddenly rose within 500 years, 27 meters. So sea water entered into the Persian Gulf. Then they slipped into Iraq. So this is how Sumerian civilization born. Then Egyptian civilization, the Egyptians talk about their history also more than 10,000 BCE. And Manetho, he was the author of Egyptian, especially dynastic history. He starts chronological history of Egyptian kings, the 30 dynasties, beginning from 6,000 BC. But what Christian historians have done, they completely rejected Manetho's claims that no, you can't date Menes at 6,000 BC. They cut down 3,000 years and put Menes at 3,000 BC. Why? Because you can't date anyone beyond 4,000 BC. To be consistent with the Bible, that's all. Was no science or anything they have discovered that why Manetho was wrong. This is exactly the reason why I am saying that we need to give more credence to the historical text, traditional text written before the birth of Christ. We should not give more credence to the text written after the birth of Christ, because especially the Christianity was very adamant that you have to draw your history from Bible, means Adam and Eve and the chronology. Otherwise, if you claim greater antiquity or something else, then Bible will be proven wrong. Then we have an Assyrians also, especially. The Assyrians and Egyptians were actually from Persians. The one King Sam, his son was Ashur, who founded the Assyria. And Menes was also descendant of the Sam, the Persian King Sam. So that's why the Persians only established Assyrian Egyptian kingdom. Then we have a Scythia, the Afghanistan, Bahlika, Cambodia, Gandhara. These were the regions, mostly these Scythian Shakas. From Rigvedic era, we know very well these Shakas, but we generally treated them as Mlechas. So these Scythians mixed up with the Persians. So when Dionysus invaded Afghanistan, that time the Scythians became as a warrior class to the Greeks, and they started migrating out of Afghanistan. So this was the reason. I'll just this is how, what are the blunders have been created in the world chronology is, because we need to give more credence to the historians before the advance of Christianity, and we need to read more Herodotus, Hecataeus, Manetho, Berosus, rather than Eusebius and other saints, especially Christian saints who became historians. And we have to understand how traditional chronology has been evolved. There may be certain corruptions, but we need to refine it based on the archaeoastronomical studies. This is how we need to reconstruct entire world chronology. Now, I'll just give you just an outline of out of India migrations. The earliest, when Indra and Vritra was also kind of a stepbrother or somebody during the period of 11 Adityas, 12 Adityas, 11 Rudras, and 8 Vasus. During that time, 33 Devas. Vritra was the son of Vishwakarma. So Indra and Vritra had a political rivalry. So then finally Indra killed Vritrasura. Since Vritra belonged to Mother Danu, so the descendants or supporters of Vritra were called as Danavas. They first migrated out of Saptasindhu region and settled at Hindu Kush region. Thereafter they slipped into Anatolia and Greece. And Asuras are only the supporters of these Vritras who settled in Hindu Kush region. They again started, like Shambhara. He reclaimed numerous cities and places up to Saptasindhu region. Then Indra defeated Shambhara. Then Asuras had no other option to migrate to Persia. This event occurred some closer to 11,200 BC. Then they had their own Veda, Asura Veda. Like Madhukaitavas wanted to, they have stolen Rig Veda from, then later Vishnu recovered that. So this was the kind of a literary or literature-based rivalry also, because Asuras wanted to establish Asura Vedas is more sacred than others. So this kind of a rivalry probably existed. That's why when Asuras migrated, then Asura Veda became their Veda, and finally that was recompiled by Zoroaster in 7000 BC. Then Egyptian kings were actually descendants of the Persian kings, so it's good. Then Sumeru region is the people migrated from Sindh, or in that northwestern India. They migrated to Persian Gulf, from Persian Gulf to Sumer. Then Aratta, then Shakas. They first conquered Persia. That's why Persian kings after Kayanian dynasty came to an end. Then Scythians actually dominated from Afghanistan to Black Sea region. So their migrations up to Black Sea, even they only populated entire steppe region. So that's why the Scythians had a great domination from Afghanistan to that side. And during that time only Yavanas, because during that time when Dionysius came to Afghanistan, he founded a city called Nysa. And in that Nysa, Yavanas were living, and these Yavanas migrated to Anatolia, came to be known as Hittite. Hittite claimed their origin from city of Nysa, and city of Nysa was existed in Afghanistan. This is the reason Yavanas were not never belonged to Asura tradition. That's why when they did that treaty with the Mitannis, they invoked Indra, Varuna, Nasatya, and other. And who were the Mitannis? They were Hurrians. Hurrians are actually Shuras. Shuras were in Afghanistan. There is a hill which is called Shura. Those living that region were called Shuras. The Shuras, when they migrated to Anatolia, normally Sa became Ha, the Huras. Then this Hurrian word came into existence. So this Hittites and Hurrians or Mitannis were originally migrated from Afghanistan to Anatolia. Then we have the Scythian migration to Eastern Europe. That is the reason originally the same Sumerians, they called it Cimmerians. Then later the other Scythians, when migrated, Cimmerians slipped into Gaul in modern day France, and then they became the there is a book called the Frankish Table of Nations. 13 nations were born from only 3 brothers had various sons, and they populated this entire Western Europe. all Western European countries, 13 European countries have been established by the three sons of one Alan. Alan was the son of same one Scythian king Magog. So this is how then all civilization. Only then what happens after Ramayana era? If we read Raghuvansha, Raghu was fighting with the Scythians or these Mlechas in Afghanistan. Why? Because they are trying to intrude into or taking over the land of the Western, especially Kekaya, Madra, Sauvira, these regions. So Raghu was protecting. After Raghu, Dushyant, Dasharatha, then thereafter Sri Rama and their later descendants successfully defended. But around 4700 BCE, Agnivarna, the last king of Ikshvaku dynasty, was very weak and he could not defend his, especially western borders. The Scythians and Arattas, they taken over the dominance over entire Punjab up to Gujarat, and they have established their kingdom, Aratta Bahlika kingdom, and they used to follow some very distinct script which is called Indus. So that Indus Valley civilization is nothing, it's not an alien civilization. The Indus Valley sites are actually the Aratta Bahlika dominion of Afghanistan, Pakistan and Gujarat, and they dominated more than 1200-1300 years. That's it, that mature Harappan period has to be dated 4000 BC to 3000 BCE. Entire Mahabharata talks about it's all entire Punjab as a Aratta Bahlika kingdom. So if you read Karna Shalya Samvada, so actually Karna was insulting Shalya, saying that you people are mlechas, you don't follow the civilized manners, you don't follow the Vedic rituals and Vedic values and numerous things. So that's why the Indus Valley civilizations are not any alien civilization. Once that civilization and Indian civilization born, the sites are actually between Ramayana era and Mahabharata era, and only Aratta Bahlika dominated these regions. And whatever the burials have been found, but because Indians never followed burial system, only these Aratta Bahlika, since they were following the Persians, they used to have a burial ritual. So that's why whatever the few burials have been found in Indus Valley sites, or even in the Sinoli also, you find their ancestry somewhere closer to Iranians because they used to mix up it. Otherwise, Indian genome and Persian genome never mixed up after 10,000 BC as established by the archaeogenetics. So this is the archaeogenetic evidences. R1A originated in India around 22,000 BC. Then R1B also, because if R1A originated, R1B also originated in the same place. And there is the oldest evidence found in Europe around 12,000 BC. So naturally, those Danavas migrated around 13,000 BC. One of the person may have slipped into Italy, where the remains have been found. And R1A1 originated also in India. Then naturally, Iranian related ancestry has been split 10,000 BC, what has been mentioned by the archaeogenetic evidence. Then this is how even the Rakhigadi sample shows that U2B2, that mitochondrial DNA, is actually exclusive to India, and same mitochondria entire Eastern Europe. Actually, this U2 is specific to Indian, especially the female ancestry. So based on that, I will just show this is they may not be visible for you. We need to rework out entire the historical linguistics also. How Indo-European languages, based on this one, Vedic Sanskrit was the actually the first daughter of so-called Proto-Indo-European language. From Sanskrit or the related other Prakrit languages came into existence, and this is how why all Indo-European languages, especially Eurasian languages, have a common origin, because they all evolved from one language. That's why. And one more specific, when we debate over linguistic evidence, if you follow, because agriculture started in India, astronomy started in India, mathematics started in India, and other certain like chariot making and metallurgy, many things. So if you just find out these scientific words and try to do the philological study, then you will find that all these, especially this advanced civilizational world, have been borrowed from Sanskrit language only. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Very extraordinary presentation. I never thought. I mean, మన పురాతన చరిత్ర అనేది కంప్లీట్గా బైబిల్ ద్వారా డిపెండ్ అయిన కొంతమంది ఎంత దారుణంగా వక్రీకరించారు, అందరి సివిలైజేషన్స్ ఎలా లింకప్ అయి ఉన్నాయి అనేది మీరు పూర్తిగా వివరించారు. సో నా సైడ్ నుంచి అయితే నాకు వాళ్ళందరి చరిత్ర అంతగా తెలియదు కాబట్టి నాకు క్వశ్చన్స్ అయితే లేవు. అరవింద్ గారు, మీ దగ్గర ఏమైనా క్వశ్చన్స్ ఉన్నాయా? ప్యానల్లో రామ్ బాణం గారు కానీ.
నమస్కారం వేర్ వీర్ ఆర్య గారు. సార్ యాక్చువల్లీ నాకున్న కొన్ని క్వశ్చన్స్ ఉన్నాయి, కానీ ఒకటి రెండు అడుగుతాను, తర్వాత సో ముఖ్యంగా ఏంటంటే ఇప్పుడు మనకి నా పర్సనల్ కన్సర్న్ కూడా అది, ఇప్పుడు మనకి భారతదేశం యొక్క గణిత శాస్త్రం అంతా కూడా జ్యోతిష శాస్త్రం నుంచి వస్తుంది. అయితే ఈ రోజున ముఖ్యంగా యంగ్స్టర్స్ కి దాని గురించి తెలియాలి, చెప్పాలి అంటే జ్యోతిష్యం అనగానే వెంటనే నవగ్రహాలు, పూజలు, శాంతులు మైండ్ సెట్కి వెళ్ళిపోతారు అందరూ. కానీ దీంట్లో ఉన్నటువంటి గణిత శాస్త్రం తాలూకా డెప్త్ అని, ఎందుకంటే ఇది తెలిస్తే కానీ అది తెలియదు. అయితే నా క్వశ్చన్ ఏంటంటే సార్, ఇప్పుడు వేదాంగ జ్యోతిష్యం అని ఒక మాట వాడతాం కదా మనం. ఈ వేదాంత జ్యోతిష్యానికి ఈ నవగ్రహాలు, పూజలు, డివోషనల్ ఆస్పెక్ట్స్ ఎక్కడ సార్ మిక్స్ అయిపోయాయి ఈ రెండును? అంటే గణిత శాస్త్రాన్ని పూర్తిగా గణిత శాస్త్రంలో అందరికి అక్రాస్ రిలీజియన్స్ చెప్పగలిగేలా చెప్పాలంటే మనం ఎటువంటి చర్యలు తీసుకోవాలి?
వన్ థింగ్, ఒకటి మనం ఏం చేయాలంటే వీ హ్యావ్ టు సెపరేట్ డిస్టింక్షన్ బిట్వీన్ ఆస్ట్రానమీ అండ్ ఆస్ట్రాలజీ. విత్ డ్యూ అపాలజీ, ఆస్ట్రాలజీ ఇప్పటివరకు ఒక సైన్స్గా ఎస్టాబ్లిష్ కాలేదు. ఇట్ ఈస్ బట్ యాజ్ పర్ ద సైంటిఫిక్ స్టడీస్ ఆల్మోస్ట్ 16,000 to 15,000 BC టైంలో సౌత్ వెస్ట్ మాన్సూన్ ఫస్ట్ టైం ఇంటెన్సిఫై అయిందని చెప్పి ఒక రీసెర్చ్ పేపర్, నాట్ వన్, మెనీ రీసెర్చ్ పేపర్స్ హ్యావ్ బీన్ పబ్లిష్డ్. వాట్ దే డిడ్, దే స్టడీడ్ ద సెడిమెంట్స్ ఇన్ ద టిబెటన్ లేక్స్. ఆ టిబెటన్స్ లేక్లో ఎప్పుడు వెజిటేషన్ స్టార్ట్ అయింది అనడానికి, విత్ దట్ వన్ దే కుడ్ ఎస్టాబ్లిష్ దట్ వెన్ ఇండియన్ సమ్మర్ మాన్సూన్ మీన్స్ సౌత్ వెస్ట్ మాన్సూన్ intensified, because that is the Holocene period for India, not what they presently Westerners give as per the European weather conditions. In India, Holocene means southwest monsoon when it begins, because without southwest monsoon you can't have an agrarian society in India. So almost 15,000 BC కంటే మొదలే భారతదేశంలో సౌత్ వెస్ట్ మాన్సూన్ ఇంటెన్సిఫై అయిపోయింది. అది కాగానే మాన్యువల్ అగ్రికల్చర్ స్టార్ట్ అయింది. వన్స్ ఇట్ ఈస్ అగ్రికల్చర్ స్టార్ట్ కాగానే అప్పుడు మనకు ఒక క్యాలెండర్ కావాల్సి వచ్చింది. వెన్ టు మన సీడ్స్ వాటన్నిటి కోసం, అగ్రికల్చర్ యాక్టివిటీ కోసం మనకు తెలిసి ఉండాలి ఎప్పుడు వర్షాలు స్టార్ట్ అవుతాయి. దట్ టైమ్ బ్రహ్మ, he was only our one of the one learned rishi. Later we named Brahma after the creator, but originally he was one rishi. He was the first person who linked the summer solstice with the astronomical observation. He found that sun is at Dhanishta nakshatra, so then the summer solstice is occurring. So this is how the Dhanishta means especially Makara Rashi has been named as a Brahma Rashi also. So Dhanishta nakshatranlo summer solstice agar date chestadi 14,500 BC ఆ టైంకి వెళ్తుంది. సో ఈ విధంగా when we could establish in a very early stages of civilization, మన ఋషులు ఏం చేశారు, దే స్టార్టెడ్ లింకింగ్ ద క్యాలెండర్ మేకింగ్ విత్ ద ఆస్ట్రోనామికల్ అబ్జర్వేషన్. సో డ్యూ టు దట్ astronomy became our obsession. So astronomy, everything can't be observed. మనకేం కావాలి, మ్యాథమెటిక్స్ కావాలి సిమ్యులేషన్ కోసం. సో వీ ఇవోల్వ్డ్ మ్యాథమెటిక్స్ టు సిమ్యులేట్ ఆస్ట్రోనామికల్ అబ్జర్వేషన్స్. బట్ ఆ తర్వాత స్లోలీ ఏమవుతుంది రాగానే, దెన్ వీ హ్యావ్ అబ్జర్వ్ దట్ వన్ ఆఫ్ పర్టికులర్ గ్రహాల పొజిషన్లో ఏదో కొంచెం మంచి దొరికితే అది ఆ విధంగా అవుతుందేనో, లేకపోతే ఇప్పుడు శ్రీరాముడు సీత వివాహము ఉత్తర ఫాల్గుని నక్షత్రంలో జరిగింది, కానీ ఉత్తర ఫాల్గుని నక్షత్రం శుభ నక్షత్రం వివాహానికి, కానీ ఎవరు మిమ్మల్ని చేయరు, ఎందుకంటే సీత ఫేస్ సో మెనీ హార్డ్షిప్స్, దట్స్ వై యూ షుడ్ నాట్ డూ వివాహ ఇన్ ఉత్తర ఫాల్గుని నక్షత్రం. సో ఇవన్నీ కొన్ని అజంప్షన్స్ వచ్చాయి తర్వాత. So this is not a science, but yes, they have a mathematics astrology also. Astrology is actually, we have seen certain shakunas, certain apashakunas, konni manchi, konchi chedu jarugutunte, then slowly astrology evolved and it has got into some kind of a mathematical simulation also. But I don't want to discourage or anything, but I'm only restricting myself to only astronomy, which is a science, the positions and everything. We have developed mathematics to simulate astronomical observations more accurately. ఈ విధంగా మ్యాథమెటిక్స్ అస్ట్రానమీకి ఇంటిగ్రల్ గా మన ఒక సైన్స్ గా డెవలప్ అయింది మన దగ్గర. సో దట్ ఈస్ ద స్ట్రెంగ్త్ ఆఫ్, బికాస్ ఇన్ ఏ వే ఇండియా ఈస్ గివెన్ బేసిక్ సైన్సెస్ టు ద వరల్డ్, ద మ్యాథమెటిక్స్ అండ్ అస్ట్రానమీ అండ్ యాజ్ వెల్ as అగ్రికల్చర్ ఆల్సో. అండ్ ఆ తర్వాత మనం సేమ్ we started developing metallurgy, even chariot making, and so many products we have, even commodities we have introduced to the world. So these things we have to tell the modern, our young generation, why it is important, because from 14,000 BC onwards, I will say thousands of years, India was dominating all world civilizations in terms of knowledge, in terms of the productivity, in terms of GDP, till 1700 or 1800 AD. Only 200-300 years we were behind due to this colonialism and Muslim invasions. ఆ తర్వాత ఈ బ్రిటిష్ colonial rule లో మనం వెనకబడ్డాం. We need to reinstate India again what glory we had thousands of years before arrival of Muslims and Britishers. సో ఆ మోటివేషన్ రావాలి అని అంటే ఆ సివిలైజేషనల్ కనెక్ట్, ఆ క్రొనాలజికల్ కాన్సెప్ట్, ఆ కనెక్షన్ కావాలి. కేవలం ఎవరికి 1 crore పే ప్యాక్ ఇచ్చినా వాడు ఇన్నోవేషన్ చేయలేడు. ఆ హార్డ్ వర్క్ ప్యాషన్ ఎక్కడి నుంచి వస్తుంది? సివిలైజేషన్ కనెక్ట్. సో వీ నీడ్ టు ఎస్టాబ్లిష్ ది సివిలైజేషనల్ కనెక్ట్ in the young minds. Then India can be glamorized in their mind. What really it is, are not just fake ideas or some kind of a fabricated stories. It is the real truth that India dominated the world. Actually, what India has contributed, if we don't have a chronological perspective, ఏం చేస్తారు? ఇండియన్ నాలెడ్జ్ సిస్టమ్ అంతా బాగా ఎన్నో రీసెర్చ్ ఈ పేపర్స్ పబ్లిష్ అవుతున్నాయి, ఎన్నో symposiums, workshops, and but the problem is they're unable to claim the chronology. What Westerners are saying that you became enlightened only after Alexander invasion. So in a way, Alexander invasion was a blessing in disguise for us. Thereafter we enlightened and we developed astronomy, mathematics. Prior to that we have nothing, because no text, no Sanskrit text is dated beyond 300 BC. So this is the serious problem in Indian chronology. If we need to solve this and establish a fact-based true chronology, and whatever the traditions are correct, only that Yuga chronology beyond Mahabharata. From Mahabharata we have a very clear, every year our chronology is perfect. కానీ మహాభారత కంటే ముందు కావాలంటే మనం ఫస్ట్ యుగ క్యాలెండర్ని కరెక్ట్ చేసుకుంటే based on the archaeastronomical studies, then we can easily establish the antiquity of Indian civilization more than 16,000 years, and what India has contributed to the world is phenomenal. The basic sciences we gave, a lot of sciences, even all scientific terminology, all especially astronomy, agriculture, mathematics related. మీరు ఎప్పుడు కూడా చూడండి, all Indo-European languages, so numbers are all Sanskrit, eka, dvi, traya, chaturtha. Even Russian language, even they use Sanskrit words only for numbers. So this is the evidence.
ఇంగ్లీష్ లో కూడా అవర్ అన్నది హోరా అన్న పదం,
అక్కడ నుంచి అహోరాత్ర నుంచి హోరా is became, then hora became hour. So if we work out astronomical terminology, mathematical terminology, agriculture related terminology, ఏవైనా hunter gatherer will not have these terms. వీళ్ళేమంటారు, లేదు ఓకే ఇండియా నుంచి అవుట్ ఆఫ్ ఇండియా మైగ్రేషన్ జరిగావని ఒప్పుకుంటారు ఈ మధ్య, కానీ అవన్నీ హంటర్ గ్యాదరర్ మైగ్రేటెడ్ ప్రీ హిస్టోరిక్ పీరియడ్, వాట్ ఈస్ ద గ్రేట్ అవుట్ ఆఫ్ ఇట్? బట్ హంటర్ గ్యాదరర్స్ కెనాట్ క్యారీ సచ్ ఏ హైలీ ఎన్రిచ్డ్ లాంగ్వేజ్. సో ఇట్ ఈస్ ద సివిలైజేషనల్ మైగ్రేషన్, నాట్ హంటర్ గ్యాదరర్ మైగ్రేషన్. ద ప్రాబ్లమ్ ఈస్ all civilizations have been grossly underestimated under the influence of Bible. Only we put selectively scientific evidence made it that if we talk about anything beyond 2000, 3000 BC, we are like a fools or something, we are fabricators. So this kind of some mindset is there presently in the academia, especially in Indian academia.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, I have two questions. First question, మీరు ఋగ్వేదాన్ని యంగర్ డయాస్ కంటే ముందు డేట్ చేశారు, కానీ అందులో ఐరన్ గురించి మెన్షన్ చేసింది, దాన్ని ఎలా అర్థం చేసుకోవాలి?
ఇది మళ్ళీ అదే చెప్తున్నాను, అబ్సెన్స్ ఆఫ్ ఎవిడెన్స్ ఈజ్ నాట్ ఎవిడెన్స్ ఆఫ్ అబ్సెన్స్ ఫస్ట్. ఒకటి. ఇంకొకటి, యూ టెల్ మీ ఇఫ్ యూ కెన్ మెల్ట్ కాపర్ బట్ యూ కాంట్ మెల్ట్ ఐరన్, అట్లా అలా ఏమైనా ఉందా?
లేదు సార్, అలా ఏం లేదు.
ఇంకోటి, సిన్స్ ఐరన్ యూస్ టు రస్ట్, సో వీ థాట్ ఇట్ ఇస్ అన్ ఇంప్యూర్ మెటీరియల్. So that's why we have not used iron, but we started using only when we developed that wood steel. Till Mahabharata era, ధనుర్ధరుడే కదా యుద్ధంలో శూరుడు వీరుడు అనడానికి, ధనుర్ధరుడే కదా. ఎందుకు ధనుర్ధర అంటే టిల్ నో వీ హ్యావ్ నాట్ ఇవోల్వ్డ్ ఐరన్ బేస్డ్ వెపన్స్ అండ్ ఐరన్ బేస్డ్ కవచ కుండలాలు అప్పటి వరకు డెవలప్ చేయలేదు కాబట్టి. Once we came out, then archery became irrelevant in the, it's not so great in the war. So then we started using horse riding sword warriors వాళ్ళందరినీ. సో స్టీల్ వాజ్ నోన్, అదేం లేదు. ఐరన్ ఒక మెటల్ ఓర్ తెలుస్తాను, ఇప్పుడు గోల్డ్ సిల్వర్ ఏదైనా ఓర్ మెటల్ కదా, ఐరన్ ఆల్సో కెన్ బి ఫౌండ్, బట్ iron used to rust, that's why they generally, Indians used to consider it's impure, so they never used that metal. Slowly they started researching how to make it more perfect, because they finally found that it's more harder than others. We started using a little harder, mean bronze we have created, but later we found that only iron alloys can be a more harder than any other. Then slowly we developed this wood steel. After that only we started using iron in more, but we never used iron in the because Indians from the Vedic era onwards, we followed very an austerity in our lives. We never want it. The real wealth came only after Mahabharata era. Till now we used to live in wooden houses and basic whatever your things are there, like utensils. Some metal utensils or earthen utensils were there with you. Baki, whatever the clothes and others also, that also existed, and rathas for traveling in others. So the reference of iron does not mean that Veda has to be dated around 1500 BC. This iron, especially recently we found the iron in Shivakashi recently, 3345 BC. Recently date is there. That iron has been found. So it does not mean that you haven't found iron that beyond that. So you have to say that we had no knowledge. That's totally incorrect. Especially the metals we used to recycle. Even 50-60 years back, if you see, every village has to recycle their whatever the metal items are there. So metal objects always we have recycled first, and iron we rarely used because it used to rust till the invention of the methodology for making wood steel. Finally, you tell a melting point. Any someone who can make furnace up to 1200, he can make up to 1500 also. There is hardly anything. Any great technology you need not to invent.
ఎస్ సార్. ఇంకొక క్వశ్చన్, శివాలిక్ హార్స్ గురించి సార్. అది యాక్చువల్గా 66 lakh years ఎగోనే అది అంతరించిపోయింది అని చెప్తారు.
లేదండి, ఇది వాట్ ఎవర్ ద రిమైన్స్ హ్యావ్ బీన్ ఫౌండ్, you do the carbon dating, it is beyond during the Holocene period only it became extinct. ఒకవేళ మనము మీరు whether you heard about one జైమినీయ అశ్వమేధ, ఒక మన సంస్కృత్ టెక్స్ట్ ఉంది జైమినీయ అశ్వమేధ. డ్యూరింగ్ రిగ్వైదిక్ పీరియడ్లో ఒక అశ్వమేధ యాగం జరిగింది. దానికోసం only few Mandhata only had that Ashwa. So someone has to go and steal that Ashwa from Mandhata's house. And this Ashwa was not so fast the way the Central Asian was so far. That's why Ashwina, the word during Rigvedic time, we used Ashwina for Yojana. Not Yojana was a smaller unit during Rigvedic period. It was Ashwina had a 13 kilometers, and Yojana was a 100 part of that one. This is the reason why in Ramayana, Sri Lanka was Shata Yojana has been mentioned. I don't think there is a 1300 kilometer distance late kada. It is actually, if you see, the Greeks used stayed that 130-160 meter, the unit. That was the Yojana during Rigvedic period. The same thing what this Asuras and Danavas carried the same unit, that stayed unit. If you whether you remember it, that the measurement of stayed used by Greeks is only 130-160 meters. So mostly the 13 to 16 kilometer width of the area used to submerge during the Ramayana era. They just did the land filling and raised the level. That was the Ramasetu.
థ్యాంక్ యూ వెరీ మచ్ సార్. ఇంకా ప్యానల్ ఎవరికైనా క్వశ్చన్స్ ఉన్నాయా? రాజశర్మ గారు, రాంబాణం గారు.
లేదు సార్, సార్ చాలా బాగా ప్రజెంట్ చేశారు. యాక్చువల్గా కొత్త కోణంలో చూసే అవకాశం ఇచ్చారు. చాలా థ్యాంక్ యూ. ఎందుకంటే ఇప్పుడు ఎంతగా తెలుసు, చాలా మంది ఏమిటంటే జ్యోతిష్యం అనగానే అదొక ఒకటి పురాణంలో లేకపోతే ఇంకోటి అనుకుంటారు. కానీ నిజంగా దాని వెనకాల ఉన్న వేదగణితం అనే దానికి అర్థం ఏమిటి, అది ఎలా ఆలోచిస్తే నాకు అర్థం అవుతుంది అనేది చాలా కొత్త కోణంలో ఆలోచించే దృక్పథాన్ని మాకు ఇచ్చారు. చాలా సంతోషం. తప్పకుండా తర్వాత ఫర్దర్ గా క్వశ్చన్స్ ప్రిపేర్ చేసుకుంటాను. నేను
even today I made one documentary. I think if you can share the documentary, either I'll give you the YouTube link also.
Yeah, YouTube link also.
20 minutes in English lo undi. And even I have in my academia.edu, if you go and type my name, you will get my page. There yes, I have shared my new books, 18th chapter, the original homeland of Indo-Europeans. You will get the gist of the entire book, because that book became 1500 pages. It's a 2 volumes. Why? Because I have to give the detailed justification, because I'm proposing certain changes in Western chronology. So that was the reason it became a very bulky book.
చదివాను, అది చాలా బాగుంది.
చరిత్ర చెప్పాలంటే ఒక పుస్తకం కాదు కదా, ఒక చాలా పెద్ద లైబ్రరీ కూడా సరిపోతుందండి. కాబట్టి మీరు 2 పుస్తకాలు రాయడం అనేది ఇబ్బంది కాదు.
మీరు ఇది రియల్ ట్రెజడీ ఇదేనండి. మనం టైం లైన్ మర్చిపోవడం వల్ల ఎవ్రీథింగ్ హ్యాస్ బికమ్, బికాజ్ ఒకవేళ ఆఫ్టర్ 1000 years ఒకవేళ మీ బర్త్డే ఒకవేళ గుర్తు లేకపోతే మీరు కూడా మిథికల్ పర్సనాలిటీ అయిపోతారు.
ఎగ్జాక్ట్లీ.
Naturally, because history has to be told in a date. If you don't have a date, then you are only telling your stories.
Exactly. లేదు కాబట్టి అది మిత్ అయిపోతుంది, మైథాలజీ అయిపోయింది.
ఒక వన్ మోర్ ట్రెజడీ ఏమైందంటే, ఈ బుద్ధుని డేటింగ్ లో 1381 year క్రొనాలజీ ప్రాబ్లం. ఇది కోట వెంకటాచలం గారు వీళ్ళందరూ చెప్పారు. మీరు విని ఉంటారు కదా, కోట వెంకటాచలం గారి పేరు ఇవన్నీ, నారాయణ వాళ్ళందరూ ఉన్నారు. వాళ్ళు ఏం చేశారంటే, they accepted Western chronology as it is and started reconciling it. ఇప్పుడు మన పురాణాల నుంచి క్రొనాలజీ తీసుకొస్తే Guptas have to be placed in the 330-327 BC, బట్ మీరు 320 లో పెడుతున్నారు ఇప్పుడు. So this was the allegation. He said you have done a goof up of 660 years. What all of when I started working with the modern, they are actually talking about, if you put then how can leave the Sasanians? You have to keep Sasanians 320 AD. Guptas were contemporary of Sasanians. Then you have to take back them, put 330 BC Sasanians. Then you have to put Achaemenid 660 years later, means earlier. So this is how there is some problem in dating of Alexander also in Western side. So that point I have taken, and then I have established that there is a serious error in Christian era. What you are following with first AD, that only Easter epoch, Jesus did not born on first AD. So there is a 660 year problem. So this, if we solve it, then entire Indian chronology is correct. If we leave apart this, especially Persian history and the Greek history, Indian chronology is perfect. But whenever you reconcile with the Persian and Alexander date, then it appears that our traditional chronology is totally incorrect. So I taken reverse wise. No, my chronology is correct. There is some error in the Western chronology. So I try to establish based on numerous facts that there is a serious error in dating of Jesus also. You have to date 660 BC, not on first AD. So that's why you have to anti-date by 60, 68, even Alexander also. Then what kind of a chronology you have to, because without that, if you accept 323 BC only Alexander and 320 Sasanians, then you have to put Guptas only 320 AD, not 334 BC. What our tradition says. Without that, we can't establish Adi Shankaracharya date in 6th century. Our all mathas talk about Adi Shankaracharya 6th century BC, not 800 AD. Why? Because there was a 1200-1300 gap between Buddha and Adi Shankara. If you date Buddha for 500, then Adi Shankara has to be dated 800 AD. So there is some serious problem. We need to reconcile entire world chronology. If we are assuming that Western chronology is perfect, we have to only correct it. We could not do it last 300 years. We would never be able to do it in next 3000 years also if we follow the same methodology. So that's why there is we must have some open-mindedness, and we should not think about that Western are perfect and we only differs. No. Our chronology is perfect. There is some error in the Western side also. So with that way I have studied. That's why I need to work out each civilizational history from the scratch, and that's why. Let's have a clean blackboard and let us start entire world chronology again. Why to assume certain dates are 100% perfect? Need not to be. Let us, because today we are well equipped to do it. In the past times, 300, 400 years, we had hardly so many tools what we have today. So that's why there is a serious need to rework entire world chronology from the scratch. Then probably, because the biggest in anybody's life, in a human being's life or human society's life, unlearning is the biggest problem. You can't unlearn, because it means that you have to accept yourself wrong. And that is not possible. Somebody can accept himself as a wrong. So that's why I'm actually asking a very big thing, that I'm asking everyone to unlearn first the chronology. Whatever we learnt in the 300 years, let us rework with logically, verifying every fact. Then we will find that traditional chronologies are perfect. Only we did certain mistakes in the last 300 years. I'm trying to work out some AI model also, training the AI, because chronology is fact-based, it's not opinion-based. Okay, we can keep on debating Akbar Mahan tha, nahi tha, so that's opinion-based. Okay, how you view it. But chronology is fact-based, not opinion-based. Once it is fact-based, it can have a very good model, and easily we can revalidate and all traditional chronologies. And we can correct what are the mistakes committed by the historians last 300 years. Because prior to that, every civilization followed their own chronology. Mana chronology, manam eppudu Alexander, Sasanians, manaki em sambandham ledhu kada valto, em sambandham ledhu. So there was no conflict at all. We used to say from Mahabharata era, Parikshita Janma nunchi, Mahapadmanandana, Rajyabhishekam varaku 1500 years. Okay, it means Mahapadmanandan kante 200, 300 years before Buddha. If Mahabharata 32nd century BC, then 1600 BC around is the Mahapadmananda. Then 200 years before means 1800, 1900 BC is the timeline of Buddha. But when we brought forward the Buddha's date, we got disconnected with the entire Mahabharata or Puranic chronology, because Puranas talk about only 1500 years between Mahabharata to Nanda. Then your Nanda's dated 350 BC, then Mahabharata had hardly 1700, 1800 BC. If so, your entire Puranic chronology is incorrect. Then they started doubting everything. So they wrote nothing beyond Buddha. Everything from Rigveda to Buddha, they అవన్నీ 1000 సంవత్సరంలోనే అన్నిటినీ చుట్టేశారు ఇక అంతే. దట్స్ ఆల్, నాట్ బియాండ్ 1500 BC. This was the reason why we lost our timeline, and naturally we lost our entire history, antiquity, and the true narrative of India.
Thank you.
సార్ నమస్తే సార్.
Thank you. It's a great interaction today.
సార్ నమస్తే సార్.
నమస్తే అండి.
మాది మతోన్మాదం పేరు రాంబాణం సార్, మా ఛానల్ పేరు. వాయిస్ వినపడుతుందండి?
వినపడుతుందండి.
సార్ అంటే నేను బ్యాడ్గా అదే అనుకోకుండా నేను ట్రావెల్లో ఉండిపోవడం వల్ల ఒక అరగంట లేట్గా జాయిన్ అయ్యాను. ఆ తర్వాత మనకి మొత్తం అంతా చూసి ఒకసారి యూట్యూబ్లో చూసి మొత్తం ఇచ్చేస్తాను.
సరేనండి.
నేను ఆల్రెడీ ఇంతకు ముందు ఒక దగ్గర విన్నాను సార్, చరిత్రలో వాళ్ళ బైబిల్కి అనుకూలంగా 6000కి 7000కి సర్దడం కోసం మన చరిత్రలోంచి 1000 సంవత్సరాలు డిలీట్ చేసేసారని మళ్ళీ ఈ రోజు మళ్ళీ మీ దగ్గర నేను అథెంటిక్ గా వింటున్నాను అన్నమాట. అంతే కదా సార్, 1000 సంవత్సరాల చరిత్రని లేకుండా చేశారు మన చరిత్ర కాదు.
అది స్పెషల్లీ బిట్వీన్ ఈ బుద్ధుని టైం గురించి నేను చెప్పేది.
అవును సార్, ఆ టైం అడ్జస్ట్మెంట్ కోసం
1381 ఇయర్స్ ఎగ్జాక్ట్లీ నేను క్యాలిక్యులేట్ చేసింది. 1381 ఇయర్స్. ఓన్లీ టూ ఎరర్స్. ఒకటి ఏంటంటే షకైరా అనేది ఇట్స్ నాట్ జస్ట్ 78 AD. దేర్ వాజ్ అన్ ఏన్షియంట్ షక 583 BC. రెండింటిని క్లబ్ చేసేసి వి బ్రాట్ ఫార్వర్డ్ ఎవ్రీ షక ఎవరెవర్ రిఫరెన్స్ 78 AD. ఇప్పుడు మన పరంపరలో విక్రమాదిత్యని ఆస్థానంలో కాళిదాసుడు, వరాహమిహిరుడు ఉన్నారు కదా, నవరత్నాలు. We never doubted Vikramaditya's existence and even the timeline in 1st century BC. సో బ్రిటిషర్స్ వచ్చి అడిగారు, షకాయి క్యాలెండర్ ఎప్పుడు స్టార్ట్ అయిందంటే మనం 78 AD క్యాలెండర్ వాడుతున్నాము. సరే, మీరు కాళిదాసుడు జ్యోతిర్విదాభరణంలో 445 శక అంటాడు, వరాహమిహిరుడు పంచ సిద్ధాంతికర్లో 427 శక అంటారు. ఆయన ఎలా పెడతారయ్యా 1st century BC అంటే మన దగ్గర సమాధానం లేదు. ఎందుకంటే వీ హావ్ ఫర్గాటన్ దేర్ వాజ్ అన్ ఏన్షియంట్ శక ఇన్ 583 BC. సో దిస్ ఈస్ ద ఎర్రర్ ఫ్రమ్ అవర్ సైడ్ ఆల్సో. అది నేను బేస్డ్ ఆన్ ద ఎపిగ్రాఫిక్ ఎవిడెన్స్ బేసిస్ లో నేను ఎస్టాబ్లిష్ చేయను. దేర్ వాజ్ ఒక ప్రాచీన శక సంబంధం. మన కోట వెంకటాచలం సైరస్ ఇరా అన్నారు, కానీ సైరస్ తో దానికి ఏం సంబంధం లేదు. వెన్ ఐ హావ్ స్టడీడ్ ద కాపర్ ప్లేట్స్ అండ్ అదర్స్, దేర్ ఆర్ న్యూమరస్ కాపర్ ప్లేట్స్ హావ్ బీన్ రిజెక్టెడ్ యాజ్ అ ఫోర్జరీ. అవి చదివితే అవన్నీ యాక్చువల్లీ దే ఆర్ లీడింగ్ టు 583 BC. So there was a shaka which has been reset by Indian astronomers in 7080. ఎందుకంటే చైత్ర శుక్ల ప్రతిపద in 1st April 78 AD, Sun, Moon and Jupiter were in a great conjunction. ఫర్ అయనాంశ క్యాల్కులేషన్ కోసం మనకు ఈ మూడింటి కంజంక్షన్ కావాల్సి వచ్చింది. అందుకే 78 AD నుంచి మనం మళ్ళీ స్టార్ట్ చేసాం క్యాలెండర్. ఓకే, సో దిస్ బట్ లేటర్ వి ఫర్గాటన్. మీకు రెండింటి శకం, ఇప్పుడు మనం తెలుగులో క్రీస్తు శకం అంటాం. అరే క్రీస్తుకు శకంకి ఏం సంబంధం లేదే. ఆ శకం సినోనిమస్ టు ఎనీ ఇరా. సో అందువల్ల వీ హ్యావ్ ఫర్గాటన్ ఏన్షియంట్ శక. దట్స్ వై 660-year chronology హ్యాస్ బీన్ మిస్అప్రోప్రియేటెడ్. ఇదొక ప్రాబ్లం. రెండోది ప్రాబ్లం ఏమైందంటే జైన్ హిస్టోరియన్స్ ఏం చేశారు, in their history there was a Chandragupta in Ujjain who became disciple of Bhadrabahu. ఆ తర్వాత ఆయన విశాఖాచార్యుడు అని జైన భిక్షు అయ్యి శ్రవణ బెల్గోలాకు వచ్చేసి అక్కడనే శరీర త్యాగం చేశాడు. ఇప్పుడు ఆ చంద్రగుప్తుడు ఆయనకు వాళ్ళ జైన్ ఎవర్రా భారతదేశంలో ప్రసిద్ధమైన వాళ్ళంటే చంద్రగుప్త మౌర్యుడు అని పేరు పెట్టుకున్నారు ఆయనకి. కానీ చంద్రగుప్త మౌర్య వాజ్ నెవర్ ఇన్ ద ఉజ్జయిన్, హీ వాజ్ ఇన్ ఏ పాటలీపుత్ర. అండ్ సెకండ్, కర్ణాటక సాహిత్యంలో అందరినీ ఆయన్ని గుప్తాన్వయ అని అంటారు చంద్రగుప్తుని. మౌర్యాన్వయ ఎందుకన్నారు, ఎందుకంటే ఆయన మౌర్య వంశంతో సంబంధం లేదు ఆయనకి. ఈ విధంగా ఆ జైన గుప్త అంటే ఆయన ఆ చంద్రగుప్తుడు యాక్చువల్లీ మాలవ గుప్త వంశం అతను, ఆయనకు మౌర్యులతో సంబంధం లేదు. సో వెన్ యూ మేడ్ ఆ జైన్ చంద్రగుప్త యాజ్ చంద్రగుప్త మౌర్య, then you made Buddha and Mahavira contemporaries. Actually there was a 700-year gap between Buddha Nirvana and Mahavira Nirvana. This is how 1300 years have been compromised, making these two mistakes. If you correct these two mistakes, if you correct it, entire Indian chronology is correct, starting from 32nd century BC to till date edaithe chronology ichcharo ma dantlo. Only our chronology gets rejected when Alexander enters. So that we need to validate differently. Then we can establish the authenticity of Indian chronology, at least from Mahabharata to till date. Beyond that, we need to reconstruct Yuga calendar. ఎందుకంటే అంత మనం మహాభారతం వరకు అంతకంటే ముందు మనకి ఏం క్యాలెండర్ రాదా? మీరు వేదాలు చదవండి, అన్ని చదివితే వాళ్ళు దే న్యూ వెరీ వెల్, దే న్యూ ద సీజనల్ క్యాలెండర్. అసలు మధు, మాధవ, ఇవన్నీ సోలర్ మంత్స్ కూడా ఉన్నాయి, ల్యూనర్ మంత్స్ ఉన్నాయి, 5-year యుగాస్ ఉన్నాయి, త్రయోదశ మాస, వాళ్ళు ఇంటర్ క్యాలరీ మంత్ గురించి కూడా మాట్లాడుతున్నారు, నక్షత్రాల గురించి మాట్లాడుతున్నారు. ఎంటైర్ నక్షత్ర సూక్త ఇస్ 28 నక్షత్రాలు, కానీ వాళ్ళ క్యాలెండర్ తెలియదా? దట్ ఏ గ్రేట్ సివిలైజేషన్, దట్ అంత పెద్ద పెద్ద పుస్తకాలు క్యాలెండర్ వచ్చిన వాళ్ళకు కాలగణనం రాదా? వచ్చేది, కానీ we counted only yugas, but later yugas length have been enlarged, so we have lost our chronology in that. We need to only Nirakshira Vivekanto separate chala historical timeline of the yugas and astronomical manipulations of the yugas ఆ రెండింటిని వేరు చేసుకుంటే దెన్ వీ కెన్ ఈజీలీ అండర్స్టాండ్. ఇదే ప్రాబ్లం ఏమైందంటే వెన్ యుగాస్ బికెమ్ లాక్స్ ఆఫ్ ఇయర్స్, అప్పుడు మనం ఏం చేసాము, రాముడు 11,000 years పరిపాలించాడని రాసుకున్నాం. ఏం చేస్తాము ఇప్పుడు? క్రోనాలజీ పెద్దగా అయింది, హిస్టరీ తక్కువైంది. సో ఇఫ్ యూ డివైడ్ 11,000 by 360, ఇట్స్ ఓన్లీ 32 years టు శ్రీరామ పరిపాలించింది. 32 years ఓన్లీ, నాట్ 11,000 years.
సార్ దీని మీద కేంద్ర ప్రభుత్వం రీసెర్చ్ ఏమన్నా ఇనిషియేట్ చేస్తే మనకి సెట్ అవుతుందేమో.
అదే చేయాలండి, మనం ఇవన్నీ చేయాలి, కానీ దీనికి వీ నీడ్ టు వర్క్ ఆన్ మచ్ బిగ్గర్ స్కేల్ అండ్ వీ హ్యావ్ టు. ప్రాబ్లం ఏంటంటే ఇండియన్ క్రోనాలజీ కెనాట్ బి కరెక్టెడ్ ఇన్ ఐసోలేషన్. వీ నీడ్ టు వర్క్ ఆన్ ఎంటైర్ వరల్డ్ క్రోనాలజీ.
అవునండి,
అది. సో అందుకే నేను చెప్పేది ఏంటంటే వీ మస్ట్. Actually, I have done the same thing. I have wrote 3 volumes on Indian chronology, 2 volumes on world chronology. So I have actually done some rough work how to finally, because we have to present a research which withstand the modern academic scrutiny.
Sir, one last question. యాక్చువల్గా ఇప్పుడు జనరల్గా చూస్తే మనకి వ్యవసాయం అనేది, ఫార్మింగ్ అనేది 9000 BC తర్వాతే స్టార్ట్ అయింది అంటున్నారు.
అదే వాళ్ళ ప్రాబ్లం అండి, వాళ్ళకి హోలోసీన్ తర్వాతనే పెట్టాలని చెప్పేసి. ఇప్పుడు రీసెంట్లీ మీరు చూడండి, మన దగ్గర లహురదేవ అని ఉంది, అక్కడ డేటింగ్ 9000 10,000 BC వరకు డేటింగ్ అయింది. స్పెషలీ ఈ గ్రెయిన్స్ అవన్నీ అక్కడ డేట్ చేశారు. ఇఫ్ యూ గో టు ద అక్కడ మన జోర్డన్ ఏరియాలో ఆర్కియాలజీలో 12,500 BCలో బ్రెడ్ శాంపిల్స్ దొరికాయి కొన్ని. ఈవెన్ రీసెంట్లీ సమ్ ఇక్కడనే మన గుజరాత్లోనే సమ్ డంప్, ఏన్షియంట్ డంప్, అక్కడ సమ్ గ్రెయిన్స్, ఫుడ్, ఈ బ్రెడ్ అటువంటివి దొరుకుతాయి, డేట్ చేస్తే అటు 10,000 BC. That does not mean that అంతకంటే ముందు మనకి ఏం రాదా. This is the biggest problem that archaeologists, if they found and later they have not found, does not mean that అది మనకు తెలియదు అనుకోవడం తప్పు కదా. First we need to say agrarian society is possible only when the monsoons are regular. Okay
sir.
You can't have agriculture in the ice age when there was no possibility of rains at all.
సరే, ఇప్పుడు మనం వేదాలని ఒక హిస్టారికల్ రికార్డింగ్స్ కింద తీసుకోవచ్చా, లేకపోతే ఇప్పుడు మామూలుగా
హిస్టారికల్ టెక్స్ట్ ఉంది? హిస్టారికల్ టెక్స్ట్ అంటే ద మోస్ట్లీ ద సివిలైజేషనల్, వాళ్ళు కొన్ని సబ్జెక్ట్ వేరు అనుకోండి, కానీ ఇన్ ద కాంటెక్స్ట్ దే లైక్ దే రిఫర్ ఇట్ టు సర్టన్ హిస్టారికల్ పర్సనాలిటీస్. సంబడి ఈస్ టాకింగ్ అబౌట్ రిషి అగస్త్యుని పేరు వస్తే, that rishi has to be dated after Agastya kada, because some rishi is referring to Agastya. Somebody is referring to Vishwamitra, then he has to be dated after Vishwamitra. Somebody is naming Mandhata, then he has to be dated after Mandhata. ఈ విధంగా నేను రిలేటివ్ క్రొనాలజీలో ఈ వైదిక్ the historical person during Vaidika, we can have some relative chronology. Once we have a one particular timeline based on the archaeoastronomy, then we can roughly work out plus minus few hundred years. A chronology can be easily worked out.
Thank you, sir. ఇంకా ఏమైనా ప్రశ్నలు ఏమైనా ఉన్నాయా ప్యానల్ మెంబర్స్కి? Okay, I take it as I know.
Thanks అండి, ఆల్రెడీ
Thank you
1.5
very
year.
It's such a fun.
ఆల్రెడీ 1.5 year అయిపోయింది మనకి.
1.5 hour. Yes, sir.
1.5 hour. Sorry, 1.5 hour.
Thank you very much, sir. 1.5 hour time.
థ్యాంక్ యూ వెరీ మచ్ సార్.
థ్యాంక్స్ అండి, థ్యాంక్ యూ.
థ్యాంక్ యూ.
అందరికీ నమస్కారం అండి.
అందరికీ నమస్కారం. సో చూస్తున్న అందరూ దయచేసి లైక్ చేయండి, అలాగే మీ ఫ్రెండ్స్ అండ్ ఫ్యామిలీతో షేర్ చేసుకోండి. చాలా వాల్యుబుల్ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్. 10,000, 15,000, 16,000 ఇయర్స్ ఆఫ్ హిస్టరీని ట్రేస్ చేయగలం అనేది ఆసామాషి విషయం అయితే కాదు. సో ఈ లైవ్ అయితే ఇక్కడ క్లోజ్ చేస్తున్నాను. తర్వాత లైవ్ మళ్ళీ కలుద్దాం. అప్పటి వరకు జై శ్రీరామ, జై హో భారత్.